welcome back to the review. Today I'm just going to actually run through an overview and sort of a walkthrough for Babylon 5, the CCG. This came out by Precedence. This was back in the 90s. So this is one that I never got into a lot, really. I think I never actually played a full game ever. So this is going to be the next new game that my friend Rick and I play, and that should be coming up later next week for the video, once we get that posted and edited. But I wanted to give you guys an upfront walkthrough video so that when you see the actual game, you'll understand what's going on, so that it won't be something you're not familiar with. So, the way it works with this deck, with this game, is it simulates in very much the political intrigue and military interactions of various factions or galactic powers in the universe, in the known galaxy, aka Babylon 5, the Centauri, the Narn, etc. And so these are, that's what this simulates. So as a result, this is unlike most other CCGs that you've seen me play. This is the most involved and intricate of any of the CCGs by far. And that's because it really covers that complexity of these multiple, really complicated interactions with these different superpowers. So, I'm going to walk through and just go through a walkthrough and explain things for you. So this game, you're going to always have one faction that you're going to be playing with, and that's going to be represented with a starting ambassador. As you can see, this is a deck I already have set up. This is a Centauri deck. So my starting ambassador here is Lando Malari. And you can see what faction they're for, because the character will see right under the picture what faction it is, whether it's a Narn, Centauri, or whatever character. This is a Centauri character, and below that you'll have game text, and this states on there it's the Centauri starting ambassador. So they're very clearly indicated which ambassador is going to be your starting one. Just as a preface, there we go. Just as a preface, I'm not going to go through and talk about every single little minutia of rule with this game, because like I said, it's very involved. I'm going to give you enough that you can actually sit and play a game with someone, enough so you can actually enjoy the game and play it. All the minutia involved to really know the game well, I'll leave that up to you to discover. But I'm going to walk through the basics and some basic turn flow in a couple turns, and should be good. Okay, so like I said, now the rules for constructing a deck is the deck has to be at least 50 cards, no more than 3 copies of any one card, card name, I should say, and then also, see, that's the card's construction, I'm sorry. And then when you're playing a game, you can't have 2 players playing the same. You can't have any players duplicating the same faction. So if you have the 3-player game, no 2 players can be Centauri, example, for etc. So the gameplay is I believe 2 to 5. I could be wrong on the higher number there. But again, no 2 players that are involved in a game can be the same faction. But there's construction, there's gameplay rules for you. Okay. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and go through this game. So you're going to have a setup, which is basically going to consist of where you see here you have the your ambassador, and then you're going to have also your inner circle, and then here you're going to have a supporting row. And let me see if I can get this. Actually, I probably need to put up a little bit higher. There we go. Okay, and then your supporting row. Then also here you have tokens, and that's showing your influence. And then you're going to have areas to the side here. We're going to have the draw deck and discard pile off to the left here. Off to your right, I'm sorry. This is reversed, it's facing you. Sorry. So off to your right, your draw deck and discard pile. Off to your left, so to your left you have the ambassador, and then inner circle and supporting rows. And then of course you're going to have next to here, in spaces over here to the side next to your ambassador on this side, you're going to be putting things such as agendas and aftermaths, which are card types, which I'll get into. And then you're going to be, when you play a card, it's always going to go into this support row. and then eventually, if you want to, at some point in the game, you can move them into your inner circle. Now, inner circle versus support row, there is a difference. Cards in the support row can be eliminated or destroyed. Cards in the inner circle cannot, not permanently. They can always heal. And so they can come back without any permanent loss. So that's the difference between the two. That's just a brief overview description there. But that's what the board basically is going to look like. And personally, to track one's influence rating, I usually like to use a die 20 and another die for what's available. And I'll explain the difference. There's a difference between your influence rating and influence available in a given turn. Your turn will always start out where you have your available influence equal to your influence rating. That's always going to be the same at the beginning of every turn, but then you spend that influence, just it's the currency in the game. Just like mana is for Magic, etc. Now you can increase that pool by increasing that rating itself, and thus will give you more to work with the next turn and so forth. Now that influence rating has another name. That influence rating is also called your power. So the way you win the game is the first one to 20 power is the first one to win the game. So that's it. That's the most basic I can put it. Now, characters are going to be slotted in 3 different stats. The intrigue, diplomacy, leadership, and actually 4 possible, I'm sorry, and there's also psionics. But the most common stats are, again, the diplomacy and intrigue, because those are really the biggest main kind of focuses for the game. But there's leadership, and that allows them to go ahead and lead fleets, which are the military ships, which allow you to engage in military conflicts in the game. But a leader can lead a fleet, so boost that fleet's military stat for a given conflict or whatever. And then there's psionics, and psionics is just another stat that may be used by other game text, may or may not, but can also be used with psionic or conflicts, which came out in the Psy-Core set for the most part. There we go. Okay, so the factions in this game, the 4 initial ones were Centauri, Minbari, Earth Alliance, and what was it? Narn, sorry. And then later on there were 2 more factions that were added with expansions, the Psy-Core, and then also the League of Non-Aligned Worlds. So those were the other 2 that were added. So in total there are 6 possible factions you can play in this game. But what you're going to do is, again, like I said, you're going to try and get up to that 20 power to win the game. The way you're going to do that is you're going to go ahead and use conflicts to do that. Also, conflicts are the primary engine of the game to try and thwart your opponent, to do stuff to your opponent during the game. So that's really the conflicts are the main mechanism to interact with your opponent and do stuff to them. Now the card types, again, like I said, you have conflicts, you have characters, you have, as I mentioned, there's also military fleets, so military fleets. There's also locations like homeworlds. They also have events, which can be momentary or long-lasting. Usually they're momentary, though. You can also have agendas, which represents a long-term kind of goal or long-term focus for your for a given sort of strategy. You don't need to have multiples in your deck. You don't even need to have an agenda, but it's always good to have at least one to sort of focus your deck around. And then there's, let's see, so events, ships, locations, personnel, enhancements. Enhancements are things that will be played onto a character or a ship usually. Again, it gives you some kind of permanent bonus or benefit of some type. There are also groups, which are a form of characters, but they don't have stats usually. They're usually just a game effect. So they don't represent characters that you can interact with or engage with in any kind of conflict. But they're characters, so like a group. So Centauri Guards, for example. And then the last thing are aftermaths. And again, aftermaths are something that will play as a result of a conflict's result. So, but those are the types, just a brief run through. You'll see them as we go through and as I go through the gameplay. All right, so now what you're gonna do once you have your deck and you're set up to go, like I said here for an example, is you're gonna go ahead and pick out 3 other cards that you're gonna use for your starting hand. So like I said, unlike other games, this game is one where you get to pick out your starting hand. So I'm gonna go through here. Now, the only restriction to the starting hand of those 3 other cards you're going to start with besides your ambassador is they can't be the same card type. So, I'm going to go through and I like to sort of start out with generally the ambassador's aid, and every ambassador that I know of has an aid. And aids have some inherent abilities besides whatever printed game text they may have, and they're usually pretty cheap and they usually help out a bit. So I like to grab the aid. So the aid for my deck for Lando is, of course, Vir Koto. So I'm going to grab Vir as one of my 3 starting cards. And then let me see what else I want to grab. Generally, also an agenda is a good thing to grab for your starting cards, sort of get your engine rolling. So I'm going to do that. My second of my 3 cards, I'm going to grab an agenda. I'm going to grab Knowledge is Power. And then I'm also going to go ahead and grab a location. I'm going to grab Regesh 3. So those are my 3 starting cards that I'm going to grab. So that will be, in effect, my starting hand. So I'm going to go ahead and grab these and set those aside. Just temporarily I'll put them there under my ambassador and then shuffle the rest. And we have our starting hand. And we are good to go on that. So let me just give this a quick shuffle. Now, like I said, we have the starting ambassador set up. We've got our starting hand. Also, before you do the starting hand, you're going to set up a beginning influence. So every player starts out with 4 influence, and that's represented with these tokens. So basically the way it works, if you're using tokens, and there's nothing wrong with using tokens for the influence, is you put them above the ambassador, and that's what you have available. When you spend influence, you're going to move it to below your ambassador's card to show that that's what's been spent. So available, spent, and it's that simple on how that's going to work. All right, now something to let you know: when you buy a starter deck, you're going to come with it's going to come with a sheet like this. Now this sheet is something that measures your tensions, your unrest, and then influence for 3 different groups. This is something you'll also want to have available as a reference. You don't need to have this exactly between you and your opponent, as long as it's something that can be referenced by you and your opponent in some way. I mean, you can have off to the side for all they care. But you're going to go ahead and beginning of the game, each player is going to go ahead, each faction that's being played will go ahead and set their tensions with whatever factions are in play, whatever your defaults are. So for example, the Centauri, my human and Minbari, that's human, I'm sorry. Where's my Centauri? There we go. Centauri, sorry. So Centauri. So the Centauri faction, it's going to show that their relations, Centauri and human relations, are at a 1. And then it's going to show for the Narn, our tensions are at 4. And then for all the other races, we start at 2 for a Centauri player. And then unrest always starts at 1 for players. But the rulebook would tell you what each of those races start out with. And they're pretty close to that, but some are not nearly that way, because again, the Narn and the Centauri are the only ones that have like a 4 that extreme, because again, they're enemies. But you're going to need to set up these because some cards will play depending on what your tension rating is with another race. Some cards depend on being that you have a low tension with another race. Other cards may require that you have a higher tension with another race. For example, declaration of war, you have to have a 5 tension to be able to declare war with another faction. Other cards like a trade route, trade pact, sorry, A trade pact requires you have a 2 or a 3 or something like that. Something that's a very low tension with another race to be able to do that. So you have to keep track of this during the game. So this is another example of a level of intricacy with the game. And then of course, like I said, you have the influence of these 3 groups. You have the the Shadow, the Vorlon, and Babylon 5, and those all start at 4 as well. So you set this up so that you have this set up, and like I said, as long as it's somewhere where it can be referenced. You don't have to have it between the players, as long as it can be referenced. So once you have that set up as well, and you have everything ready to go, then you're ready to start the game. So, alright, so I have my beginning hand. Like I said, I got the Veer, Knowledge's Power, and Ragesh 3. Alright, so here we go. So the way the turns work is you're going to start out with the ready phase. So the ready is just like the untap phase in Magic. So if you have any characters that have been rotated for an effect, or because they were involved in opposing or supporting a conflict, you're going to go ahead and spin those characters. You're going to ready those characters. So you're going to rotate these back to an upright position. So that's the first thing you do in the ready phase. Then you get to go ahead, and every player will be able to play the conflict, play a conflict from their hand. Obviously on the first turn of the game, no one's going to be able to do that. Now each of these steps every player is going to do in an order, but every player will have a chance to act in each of these phases before the phase ends. It's just a matter of who acts first. And so the way it works when you decide who goes first is you're going to look at whoever has the highest power. Whoever has the lowest power, and you go in ascending order. And the reason being is that represents that if you have the higher power in the game, you're able to literally sit back and let everyone else make their first move before you have to make your move. So that represents you being able to sit back and react to other people's decisions before you have to make a decision, which makes sense if you're sort of the one trying to call the shots. So in other words, if you have the lowest power, you go first in the game. The highest power goes last, and it goes in ascending order. Now, if there's a tie for any particular power number between between players, then you break the tie versus on who has the highest diplomacy. So again, whoever has the highest diplomacy would break the tie, and if you have the higher diplomacy, then you're going to be able to force the one with the lower diplomacy to go first before you have to act. But anyway, so that's how you determine who goes first, and you're just going to act in that order. So again, the first turn is ready. The first turn of the game, you're going to end up skipping that because nothing's going to have happened during that. Conflict phase, no one's going to act during the first turn of the game because no one's done that. Then you go to actions. Alright. And, okay, so actions. So we're going to look at our hand here. And actions phase, you have several different actions that are a possibility. So the first thing you can do is you can sponsor a supporting card. So in other words, playing a card into the support row. The term is sponsoring. So in this game, in addition to paying the influence cost, if there is one, you also have to have someone from the inner circle, so someone here in this inner circle, pay or sponsor, in other words, rotate or sponsor a card going into the supporting row. So for me, let's say that I'm starting, because let's say that humans have the higher power, so I go first since I have lower power. So I'm going to act first during this action round. So what I want to do is I want to go ahead and get Veer Koto in. So I'm going to go ahead, and I'm going to spend 3 of my influence. Again, move it to the bottom to show it's been spent. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to play Veer Koto into my support row. So there you can see I've now have Veer Koto in support row. He costs 3, so he's in there now, and I had to rotate to sponsor. So I rotated my ambassador, I play Veer Koto into my support row. So that was one action. And then we go ahead and go into now I could have, instead of playing Veer Koto, I could have played my agenda. But I'm assuming, let's say on this first round, that no one played any kind of conflict. And that's usually what happens on the first round, because you're just starting the game and no one's really feeling like they want to butt heads at that point. Anyway, so I do that. Now it goes around, so I acted, it go back to my opponent. He would be able to do an action. Let's say he actually does put down an agenda because he doesn't have any character that he wants to play. That goes back to me. Now, I have nothing left that I can do at this point because I have nothing. I don't have anyone in my inner circle to sponsor anything, so I can't do anything at this point. In terms of bringing out anything, on the table. If I had an event, I could still play that. If I had an event to play that cost 1, but I don't have it in my hand. So I'm going to pass. Then it's going to go to my opponent, and then let's assume he didn't have anything else he can do either, and he would pass. So once we both pass, that ends the action phase. So once the action phase is over, we now go to resolution phase. Now resolution, it only happens if you have a conflict that was played during the conflict phase that ended up being played and we interact with. Since there was no conflict, there's going to by default be no resolution phase, nothing to do during the resolution phase. So we're going to pass that, and then we go to the draw phase, which is the last phase. Now during the draw phase, you get to draw one extra card. You draw one card. So I'm going to draw a card, and it is Jacinda. So I got a character. Sorry, I'll do it that way. So I got a character, Jacinda. Alright, so I got a character. Now, after you do your one card draw at the end of the turn, if you have any influence left, you can spend 3 influence to draw 1 additional card, and you can spend that as many times as you want for how much you have. So if you had 6 at the end of a turn, you could spend all 6 to draw 2 cards beyond the initial card draw. In this case, I only had 1 influence left. So I'm not going to draw any additional cards. That's going to end. My opponent, however, let's say he didn't play anything that cost anything, so he's going to go ahead and be able to draw an additional card with a 3. Oh no, I'm seeing. Actually, no, let's move it done. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we go to the new turn. So the new turn, again, the first thing you do on the turn order of play is you're ready. So I'm going to ready my Londo. Londo is readied. We go ahead and restock. So we're going to move these back over. And so that means that we get our influence back. I ready him, I ready Veer, and we are ready to start. He does the same. So we were both ready. Now we go to the conflict phase. And none of us have a conflict we want to play yet. So, it's again, he has the higher power still, so I'm going to have the first action to play in a turn. So what I want to do is I am going to go ahead and do something. I'm going to do the next most common action. So I've shown you how to sponsor a supporting card, which I did with Veer. So now I'm going to go ahead and promote a supporting character to the inner circle. So I'm going to promote Veer now into the inner circle. So any character in the inner circle can promote. So what I'm going to do for my first action is I'm going to go ahead and promote, not sponsor, I'm sorry, I'm going to promote. So I'm going to go ahead and again I'm going to rotate Londo to promote Veer, and he's going to move up to the inner circle. So now I have 2 characters in my inner circle. Now also, I need to do 2 things when I promote. I apologize. So first of all, I need to rotate, and then I need to pay. I apologize. I also need to pay. So what it costs to promote is it's going to be the cost of the character, so their influence cost, so in this case Veer is 3. And so in addition, it's going to be another +1 for every character that's already in the inner circle. The ambassador here is automatically in that inner circle. So in other words, I'm going to have to spend 4 to promote Veer. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to spend all 4 of my influence, and that will allow me to, so I rotated my ambassador, so I rotated Londo, spent the 4, now I get to move Veer up to my inner circle. So, now Veer's in the inner circle. Now, after that, it now goes to his turn. Let's say for his turn, he's already played his agenda last turn, so what he's going to do is another action he's going to do what we call build influence. In other words, that's a way to raise that power, or raise that influence rating, aka power, that you have in the game. And so what he can do, let's say he does that, what he will do is he will rotate to build influence. He will rotate an inner circle character to go ahead and add 1 to the influence. Now to do that, he also has to spend 3 influence. So if he wants to add 1 to his power, then he needs to spend 3 influence. So if he had done that on his turn, let's say that's what he does for his action, he would spend 3 influence, rotate his 1 character he has so far, his ambassador, which in this case would be Sheridan, since he's playing human, the Earth Alliance. He would rotate Sheridan, pay 3 influence, his power would go from 4 to 5. And whenever you build influence, or whenever influence is lost or built, either way, that will immediately adjust what's available. So it's very important to understand. So in this case, my opponent, he's going to go ahead and rotate Sheridan to build influence to raise his power from 4 to 5. Because he's done that, because he's built influence, again, the effects are immediate. So he would normally have only 1 left, but because he built influence by 1, he's going to have 1 added immediately to what's available left. So instead of 1 available left, he has 2 influence left. So he has 2 left at this moment with 5 power. So that's what he did, is he built influence for his action. So what I'm going to do, because I do want to be able to start also in the same manner, being able to get things set up and ready as well, I'm going to go ahead and rotate. Now, your characters, the turn that characters come into the inner circle, you do have them available to do whatever you want with them right away. So I'm going to rotate Veer to play an agenda. So that agenda, knowledge is power. I'm going to play this card, and again, it's just going to go right there next to your ambassador. So I'm going to play right here, and I don't know if you can see it. It's off to the side, so it's not really visible. Let me see if I can. Okay, pictures are a little smaller that way, but at least you're seeing the entire board this way. Okay, so there we go. Let me move this over some more. Okay. All right, so to go ahead and bring out agenda, you need to rotate an inner circle character, which is what it did. So I rotated Veer to bring out knowledge is power. So I now have an active agenda. Okay, so that was my turn. Now it goes back to him. Let's say he doesn't have any cards left that he can play, so he passes. It comes back to me, and I would then also pass. I have nothing else that I can play because, as you can see, I have now used all of my inner circle characters. I've spent all my influence. I have nothing else that I can do in terms of having things done. So that ends our turns, and it goes back to us. So it goes now so the actions have ended. Now we go to resolution phase. Again, there's nothing to resolve because we have no conflicts that were put in. So now we're going to go ahead and draw our card at the end of the turn. Mine is Soul Hunter. Oops, sorry. Soul Hunter. It's a pretty cool card. Okay, so I went ahead and drew, and I have nothing that I can do for extra for the card draws. So now we go to the end of that ends the turn. New turn. Alright, so again we replenish. So I go up back up to 4, but because I didn't build influence, that's all I go up to is 4. However, my opponent, the Earth Alliance player, will go up to 5 at the start of his turn because he built his influence last turn. So he's going to start with 5 influence versus my 4 at the moment. So we then go ahead and ready. So I now have more available actions I can do each turn with this. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, again, my turn. So we're going to go ahead and, yep. Okay, so unfortunately there's not much I can do, unfortunately, at this point. So he's higher in power, so that means again I get to start. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to rotate. I'm going to go ahead and rotate Veer to go ahead and build influence. So I'm going to again move the 3 that's above my ambassador down to below, and because I built influence, I get to, and it ups it immediately. Again, I get that adjustment to my available right away. So now I spent 3 to up my influence from 4 to 5. So in effect, my power's gone from 4 to 5, and my available influence is now 2 left after doing that. So I look at my hand. So I pass. It now goes to my opponent, and let's say he goes ahead and spends what he needs to play his assistant. So he spends the influence and rotates his ambassador to play his assistant. So he does that. Now it's my turn. Unfortunately, everything I have is at least a 6, and I don't have enough to spend for that. So I can't do anything. I'm going to pass. It goes to my opponent, and then he's going to pass. Because let's say he has nothing else to play as well. So that would be the end of the turn. We would pass. Again, no resolution because no conflict, and then draw. So we draw a card. So I went ahead and drew a card. And then my opponent will do the same. I only had 2 left, so I have no way of actually, buying more cards or anything at this point. But again, we reset for the new turn. We rebuild our influence. So now, as you can see, I now have 5 available, which will be good. All right, so Veer is going to ready. My opponent readies his. Now, this actually brings up to being able to showcase one of the things that an assistant can do that's unique that they can automatically do. So, what an assistant can do by default is one of 2 things, regardless of what their game text says. An assistant can directly help the ambassador, since it's the ambassador's assistant. Makes sense, right? So, in this case, I'm going to have Veer help Londo out. What you can do is you can go ahead and rotate your assistant. So in this case, I'm going to, for my first action, rotate Veer Koto. And I'm going to say that Londo, my ambassador, is going to be able to sponsor something at -1 cost. So it goes to his action. Let's say he didn't have anything. So now I'm going to go ahead and rotate Londo to sponsor a card at -1 cost. So, and this will get out the location that I had picked out at the beginning of my turn of the game. And I'm going to go ahead and spend all 5 to sponsor. All right, and I spent all 5 to sponsor. And so that way, because of, again, Veer doing his assistant thing with Londo, allows me to bring into play a location that normally would cost 6. I can bring it in for 5 instead of 6. So I'm going to sponsor Regesh 3. So I sponsor Regesh 3, And this is an example of a location. Now locations, just like military fleets, will always be in the supporting row. You will never be able to actually move them into the inner circle. They're strictly support row items or cards. Now, here is an example of playing a card. I'm going to go ahead and play Meditation, which is a 1 influence cost event. So I'm going to play that card, and I'm going to spend 1, because it only costs 1 influence, and that'll allow me to draw 2 cards. Alright, so that will allow me to get this done. Okay, so I played the card, and I'm going to discard the card now. And that's it for that. Now we're going to jump ahead. Let's say we've gone through and we have 10 influence for each person. And again, that number is important. And the reason that's important is you cannot build influence as an action like you saw demonstrated once you have 10 influence. Okay? Now also you can never go below 3 influence. Now there are cards that may cause you to lose influence. You will never go below 3, so you always have at least a minimum of 3 influence. But once you get to 10 influence for your rating, in other words 10 power, then you are not able, well actually I shouldn't say that. 10 influence for the rating itself. There are cards that will add to power, but it doesn't affect your influence rating itself. You're just going to add the power to your influence rating for a grand total for your power, for seeing if you win the game. So I will have to be specific on my wording, I apologize. So once you have 10 power itself, 10 influence rating itself, I'm sorry, then you cannot build influence as an action anymore. So we're going to assume that we both got to that point, okay? So we're going to go through and we're going to assume that during the course of that, I've also been able to put out a couple more cards. So here's a character. Her name is Adira Tyree, and she's a 5 influence, and she gains intrigue with any time. It says every time Adira attacks or is attacked and is not neutralized, she gains +1 intrigue, and she has a 3 intrigue to start off with by default. Okay, so. And then also, here's an example of a group. So this is what I've drawn in the course of these turns, and here's an example of a group. Again, it has an influence and effect, and it represents a group of characters, but again, will not have any attributes to be involved with things. So here's what my inner circle looks like, and my support row at this point in the game. All right, and we have 10 influence, so I am no longer able to simply build influence as an action. That's no longer an option because I just have too much influence built up at this point. So at this point, what we're going to do is we're going to look at what we want to do. Okay, so the first thing, let's say that he still has more power, so we're going to start. So what I'm going to want to do, because I want to make sure that so again, we started the turn, we readied. So here's what's going to be different with this scenario. Now we're going to go into showing you what happens with conflicts. So I would start, because I can put a conflict down. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put down a conflict. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put down a conflict. So I'm putting it face down, and every player puts their conflict face down. Okay, so I put mine down first, and let's say he didn't have one. Let's say he does have one that's a diplomacy. Let's say he does put a conflict down on his end. So he puts one down after I put mine down. So we both have gone ahead and done the conflict round. We've both played a conflict. So we then, once we're done with the conflicts, putting them all down, we then reveal them in order of who put them down, ascending order again. So I reveal mine. So what I have is hunter-prey. So that's my conflict. So my conflict is hunter-prey, and it's an intrigue conflict. So he's going to go ahead and he's going to reveal his, and let's say his is actually an intrigue one as well. During the action phase, as an action, you can have a character support or oppose a conflict. That's one action. It's now his turn, and he gets to do an action. And let's say he goes ahead and he supports his conflict, his intrigue conflict, with a character that has 2 intrigue, for example. All right, so he's going to do that. So he supports. Now, when you support a conflict with a character, or even oppose, you're going to do the same thing as any other action. You're going to rotate the character. So you're going to go ahead and rotate the character to do that. Now, let's say that his intrigue conflict is actually targeting. Let me see really quick. Okay, so yeah, let's say his intrigue conflict is targeting me, my faction. So by default, I have a +3 opposition because of my loyal guardsman. So he's supported with 2 so far, and I have an opposition of 3 by default. So he is going to have to still overcome that with who he's got. So what I'm going to do now at this point, because I feel pretty confident, I am going to go ahead and do this. I want to go ahead and spend, actually no, I'm going to go ahead and rotate, no, actually I don't want to do that. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and do this. I'm going to rotate Vir Koto to go ahead and promote Adira. Now, to do that, it's going to cost me a little bit. It is going to make it where she is it's going to cost me 5, 6, 7. So I will have to spend 7 to do that. 1. Alright, so I'm going to spend all 7 to promote her. Alright, so I'm going to spend all 7 to promote. Alright, so I spent all 7 to promote Adira. Alright, so now Adira is in my inner circle. Alright, so he goes to him. Let's say he decides he wants to go, all he can do is put another character, one other character he has, let's say another +3 to support his conflict. So now he has 5 intrigue in support versus my 3 intrigue opposition. So he's now winning the intrigue conflict. To win a conflict that you're trying to initiate, whether it's intrigue, military intrigue, or diplomacy, or even a side conflict, you need to have that attribute total in support of that conflict greater than an opponent's opposing attribute total from those opposing the conflict. So that means he is winning that one now. Now what I'm going to do for my next action is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do something. So he's supported. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to rotate Londo, and I'm going to rotate him to go ahead and to support my intrigue conflict. So he has 4 intrigue, so there is now 4 in favor. So I'm going to put a 4 here just as a reminder that there's 4 towards. So I have 4 towards, and I am now winning that conflict. We both have enough to in our intrigue or in our conflicts to be winning them. We've both supported our conflicts with enough people. Again, he's had 2 characters that he's supported as actions towards his conflict, and I have 1 character that I've supported towards my conflict as an action. In addition, I do have, again, 3 in opposition. However, it's not enough to stop him from winning his intrigue conflict. But I have 3 in opposition by default from the Loyal Guardsman. Now, basically at this point, I'm going to show you what happens when, so again, I've showed you support, opposition's the same. If, let's say that I wanted to oppose, same thing. I would rotate and say I'm opposing this conflict that's my opponent's conflict, and then you would tally up the amount that's opposing and so forth. But what I want to show you with this next example for what you do in the game is an example of attacking. So actually, let's say he has another character that has, like, let's say 3 diplomacy and no intrigue. I could not take my one character who is not rotated. I could not take Adira and attack that one character because they are not involved in any conflict. They have a diplomacy and both conflicts are intrigue. So, I mean, there are ways to have other attributes be contributing, but normally it doesn't happen. So, his character is safe from being attacked because I can't attack. They're not involved with any of the conflicts. Now, to oppose or support a conflict, like I said, you have to have the attribute to throw into the total. So you have to have intrigue if you want to oppose or support an intrigue conflict. The character has to have that, for example. So at this point, he's got no characters left. So he's got one character with leadership, with diplomacy that can't go for the intrigue conflicts, and both of them are going for that one that they're winning so far, for their one intrigue conflict. And I have one character left that does have intrigue that can attack because she has intrigue and my opponent is involved in supporting his intrigue conflict. So I'm going to do what we call an attack. So I'm going to rotate Adir, and she is going to attack the character who's been contributing to intrigue. So this is how combat works. So you then take your characters and you look at their attribute that they're attacking with. In this case, it's intrigue, and they then apply that much damage to each other at the same time. So my character, his character of 2 intrigue that I'm attacking, I will do 2 damage to, and I will do 3 damage to because I have 3 intrigue, and then his character with 2 intrigue will do 2 damage to Adira because again, intrigue. So you do the damage, and then you look at the totals. Now, as you can see, no character has a health total. What their health is by default is the highest number out of all their attributes. So if a character has, for example, Veer is an example. Veer has 2 attributes. The attributes are both a 2 diplomacy and 1 intrigue. Okay? What that means is that his health, basically, in any given conflict or any given attack is going to be 2 because his highest attribute is 2. So when you go to Adira in this combat example, her health is 3 because her highest attribute is 3. So what you do is you're going to go ahead and again simultaneously inflict the damage to both participants in the combat. She would take 2 damage. So I'm going to put 2 markers on her. So that's 2 damage on her. It is not her health though, so she is not what they call neutralized. If you take enough damage equal to your health, or in the case of a military fleet, enough damage equal to that fleet's military value, then they're going to be neutralized. A card that is neutralized is going to be turned upside down, and then for any damage over their health, you're going to put that many tokens or markers on the turned over card to mark that the damage done over the health. So in this case, Adira, she has 3 health. She only takes 2 damage from who she attacked. So she attacked that person with 2 intrigue. That person is going to take 3 damage because her intrigue is 3. So that person is going to be turned around. So my opponent flips their character of 2 intrigue over because they're now neutralized, and will put 1 counter on that character to show the amount done over the character's health. So, and there's a reason I did that in this situation. So I've done that for my action. I went ahead and attacked. So that's an example of an attack in this game. So we now go ahead to the resolution phase. So here is the resolution phase. So now, after we've done all our actions, we are going to go ahead and look at our totals. So, and any character who has taken damage or has been neutralized is going to have that attribute number either zeroed out because of being neutralized or reduced based on the number of damage markers that they on them. So, for example, Adira's intrigue is now a 1 instead of a 3. It's a 1 because she has that health, because she has that damage. So, so first of all, sorry, I forgot it. So we now go ahead and go to the resolution, like I said. So we look at who's won. So Adira attacked the 2 intrigue character that he had. So that is now a 0 contribution from that character, which only leaves the 3 from the other character that he contributed with. Now the 3 has an opposition of 3 from my loyal guardsman. So as a result, the difference is 0. And because the difference is 0, my opponent, their intrigue conflict is not successful. So they would go ahead and discard that intrigue conflict. So it'd be discarded, it would be gone, and then in my turn, we now then look, and we would look at mine first, I'm sorry, because you resolve in the order that, according to power, I'm sorry. So before we do his, I'm sorry, we resolve mine. So we look at mine. Now mine, I had 4 towards from Londo, I had 4 intrigue towards it from Londo, and he had no one opposing from his side. So 4-0, I do win the conflict. So because I won the conflict, I resolve the effects of that conflict based on whatever that conflict says. So this conflict says that if successful, the card becomes a faction enhancement, which I can rotate to apply 2 intrigue, support, or opposition to any intrigue conflict. So now I get a 2 boost to support or oppose any intrigue conflict in the future. So this faction enhancement, I'll just put up here above my agenda as a reminder that now I have that faction enhancement. So that I'll put aside. That was successful. Again, then we'd go to my opponent, I'm sorry, and then we'd see that my opponent did not succeed. So we then go to the draw phase, and then I would draw 1 card, and I have nothing else for drawing any more cards. So, and then same, let's assume it's the same with my opponent. So that would end that. All right. And then we would then go ahead and refresh. So I would get all 10 back. These would all come back. I would get all 10. And then, of course, they would all rotate. Now, because Adira attacked and was not neutralized, she gets a +1 intrigue counter. So she is actually now a 4 intrigue. So she is now even tougher than before. So I'm going to go ahead and put a little counter on her. So she is now a 4 intrigue from that. At this time then, you would also discard any characters that were neutralized. So he would then lose the character at this time. And it would then look like this. So we would then start the new turn. Yep. Okay. So then start the new turn. And we would, like I said, ready. We do all that. And then we go to new conflict round. So the only thing that I believe gives you a fair idea of how the turns run, of the different things that you can do in a given turn. And there's a lot of actions you can do, like I said. So again, as a brief overview, first phase is ready. You're going to ready any cards that are turned. You're going to discard any neutralized cards. Then you're going to go ahead and if you want to or can, you can play conflicts. So every player is going to go ahead and in order of least power to greatest, you're going to take turns putting down a conflict if you want face down. Once everyone has put down a conflict, you turn them face up. Then we go to actions. And the actions phase are the meat of the game. Again, that's where you can build influence. If you don't have more than 10 influence rating, you can build influence. You can go ahead and promote a character in the support row to the inner circle. You can sponsor a card into the support row. You can rotate a card just for some kind of game effect, if it says rotate the card for a particular game effect. You can lead a fleet, which I didn't get to because I don't have a military. But let's say this was a ship with a military of 5, and I had a character with leadership. I can, as an action, I can take the character and just for convenience purposes, move the character over and put him over with the ship as a reminder, and that would be considered leading a fleet. And then that character's, again, military leadership, skill is added to the fleet's military skill for 1 grand number. So you can do that. Again, supporting opposing conflicts or actions you can take, as I outlined. Also, of course, attacking, like you saw Adira do to my opponent's character during a conflict. And then, of course, discarding or playing an agenda. Now, if you have another agenda you'd like to play and you already have one out, as an action, you can go ahead and discard your current agenda to play a different one. You still have to rotate. You still have to rotate or sponsor that card. It's not going to cost you anything, but you still have to rotate like you would with any other sponsoring. An inner circle character. But you can, if you have a current agenda, you can discard it and then rotate to have a new one put in. So that's an action you can do. Also, again, playing an event, like you saw me do earlier in the walkthrough, playing an event. And then here's the other thing: if you have a fleet in play, you can go ahead and spend influence to go ahead and repair the fleet. And I don't remember exactly. I believe it was, let me see what it said for the fleet. Yeah, so to repair a fleet, you would rotate the fleet and then apply 1 point of influence per point of damage that you want to repair. So if this was a military fleet, it had 3 points of damage, for example, and if I wanted to repair it as an action, I would rotate the fleet, and then I would spend the 3 influence to repair the 3 points of damage, or however much I wanted to repair. And then the other thing is, or healing a character. As you saw, supporting characters that are neutralized aren't healed, they're just discarded, they're gone. Inner circle characters, however, can be healed. So, as you can see here, Adira has 2 points of damage on her. So what I can do, if I wanted, is I would go ahead and rotate Adira. And but however, inner circle characters, you do not have to spend influence to heal them. You can just rotate and heal, and it will heal all damage. So for one of my actions on the following turn, I would do this. I would go ahead and heal Adira. So I would rotate, heal the 2 points of damage, and that would bring her intrigue, now her 4 intrigue, back up to a full 4 intrigue. So that's another action you can do for an action is you can heal. So repair a fleet or heal an inner circle character. But those are all the actions. And that's really the game. Again, like I said, first one to get a total of 20 power is the first one to win the game. First one to 20. But that's it. I hope that gave you a really good sense of, again, the turn flow, how the game works, you know, the different actions and functionality and so forth. That's it. This is Babylon 5, the CCG. And like I said, I should have my first full game with my friend finished editing and up on my channel by next week, I would assume. I'm hoping. Just depends on how quickly I can edit it. But needless to say, the game was very fun and very interesting, and our thoughts on the game, since it's my thoughts on the game, and his thoughts, we'll let you know in the video. But that's it. So I hope that, like I said, makes things a little more clear. So when you see the match, you know what's going on. You can understand what's going on. But that's it. Thank you for watching, and have a nice day.